Hello and welcome to Paul Makes Games. My name is Paul and in this video I'm going to be looking back at the game I made in week 9, talk about what went well, what could have gone better, and most importantly, what I've learned from it. Week 9's game is called Woolly Farm and the tagline for the game is a tactical alpaca farming simulator. You play as an alpaca farmer working your farm and trying to pay off the loan you took to buy it. Overall, the game turned out well. I wanted to experiment with making a tactical game in a similar vein to tactical role-playing games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, except I wanted a different theme than battles and attacking people. Hence, I came up with the idea of herding animals. There was some good feedback. I had a few comments on how unique the idea was and the art style, as well as the amount of depth for a game to be made in a week. Some things I noticed from what people said and also watching people play that I don't think I explained the mechanics as well as I could have done. An example of this is the main mechanic of herding. My idea behind it is that each corgi turn represents a movement and their effect on the direction of an alpaca is based on the path that they move. I tried to show this through ghosts of both the corgis moving and the predicted movement of the alpaca, but this didn't really work as planned. As an example of this being confused is if a corgi runs from one side of an alpaca to another, according to the mechanic, as there's movement on both sides of the alpaca, their movement will be cancelled out and they won't move. But intuitively, you would expect that the alpaca will move in the same direction that the corgi has been running. I can tell, even by writing this script, that the mechanic isn't very easy to explain, which is a telling sign that this might be an issue with the design itself. Which is today's first learning point. If there is something in your game that is complicated to explain to the player, this might be a flag that there is an issue with your design. Now don't get me wrong, you can have complicated mechanics in a game. In fact, a lot of great games have complicated mechanics, and it can be part of the fun to learn how to beat them. But you have to consider that you are putting up a hurdle for your player to get over, and you will need to put in a lot more time into helping that player have the knowledge and the tools to overcome that hurdle. Going back to Woolly Farm, let's say I was expanding the game and I decided the herding mechanic is fun to play and I keep it in. I would need to do a lot more to explain to the player how it works. It is explained at the start in the tutorial pop-ups, but it is just a wall of text that most people won't read. If I was going to explain it better, I would need to do something like an interactive tutorial where the players can go step by step through the various cases of what affects the movement of the alpacas, to give them the knowledge on how it works. And once they have that, they can then use it in-game and enjoy it instead of just being confused and frustrated. The second thing I want to talk about is my experience with pen and paper design, which I used to design Woolly Farm. What I mean by pen and paper design is that I designed and prototyped the game completely on paper first, before even touching any code or drawing any art. This included drawing out grids and little corgis and alpacas and playing out the game by hand. This is the first time that I've done this properly, and I really enjoyed it. It is a great way to be able to quickly design things and test out ideas, such as the herding mechanic I mentioned before, without taking time to potentially code up something that you might throw away. You can lay down rules and potential algorithms and decision making in plain English and see really quickly what it might be like and highlight potential issues. As well as design speed, you can also set out a concrete plan on what you need to do before you start production. This means that you waste a lot less time when you're producing the game because you aren't making decisions and you are effectively just making your way down a to-do list. This is helpful for motivation and getting things done because you can just sit down and get in a zone and just work. That being said, I did come up with some issues, especially related to using this method in making a game in a week. The biggest thing I found that caused me issues is I did miss some complexity in my design, which I didn't realise was there until I started coding. For example, I had a sentence to describe what happened if two alpacas moved into the same square. The sentence being the alpaca with the highest velocity would move to the square and the other alpaca would move to the next available space. That sounds pretty simple, right? And when you're playing it on paper, you can see what the available square is and you just move the other alpaca there. In code, it's a different story. You start coming up with issues, such as what happens when the only place the second alpaca can move is another space where another alpaca is already moving. Fine, you can apply the same rule, but then what if you've already checked that position? The code resulted in having lists of potential collisions and having to propagate these movement changes and reanalyzing new and existing collisions. Simple sentence such as the alpaca with the highest velocity would move to the square and the other alpaca would move to the next available square can get a lot more complicated in code. Another issue I found, and this is kind of related, was that I underestimated the production time. I thought that once I had all the rules and the mechanics laid out, it would be simple just to code. So I spent a lot of time working on this pen and paper prototype, and I didn't start production until late on Thursday. This was a mistake on my part, and it meant that some of the features I'd spent time planning on paper just didn't get implemented due to the lack of time. The lesson from this is that just because you have everything planned, it won't cut down your production time as much as you might think. Things rarely go to plan, and there's always something that has been missed. Make sure you account for that when you're thinking about time. Another thing to note is that I am not sure how well it would have worked with other types of games. For example, a first-person shooter. There are definitely some aspects that would work, such as designing levels and high-level decision-making for AI, but it would be difficult to simulate that feel of a player running around shooting people in first person on paper. In summary, I think pen and paper design is a great way to design a game pre-production. It's quick and easy to prototype ideas, and you can lay out a much better production plan and be more efficient when implementing the game. That being said, it can be easy to design too much, and you must be careful to be realistic when estimating how long features will take to implement. Just because it's simple on paper, it doesn't mean it will be when you're actually making it. I hope you enjoyed playing Woolly Farm. If you haven't already and you would like to, there is a link in the description below. If you would like to hear more about this project and what I'm up to, you can follow me on Twitter at PaulMakesGames. And of course, subscribe to this channel and watch my other videos. And with that, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.